All right. Hello. How is everyone tonight? I hope you're all doing well. I am checking to make sure that we are in the right group. So here we are. I am so excited tonight, guys, because we are talking about math. So we all know that if there's one subject that is hard to homeschool or people will worry about, it's math. And I'm going to be honest, I failed grade 10 math. So I switched from correspondence to public school. When I did that, I was really behind in math. I didn't understand the concepts. So I failed it. And then I didn't write the exam. It just moved me along into business math. So the very idea of homeschooling math, homeschooling my own kids, especially as we got into high school, was a major fear. So I know a lot of you had a lot of questions, and I invited Nadim, is that how you say your name?
That's it.
Butcher it. To come in and talk to us. So you want to go ahead and say hello, introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Nadim. I'm from the CTC Math crew. I've been with the CTC Math team for over 7 years now. I have a really great story. Pat, the co-founder of CTC Math, the voice behind the curriculum, was actually my teacher. So that's how I got to know him and got involved. But Tamara and I are married. Married 5 years. Tamara and I have 2 children, Emma and Chloe, 3.5, 1.5. And we have a huge love and admiration for homeschoolers.
So we were talking earlier, and I was reflecting on the younger ages, and younger kids have so much energy, but they have such a desire to learn. So I know we didn't practice this. I didn't tell you I was going to ask this question, so I hope you don't mind.
Oh,
But I know many of the working moms, so all of the moms in our group, they work. They either work part-time at home, they work part-time outside the home, some work full-time, both inside and outside the home like I do. So they're juggling a lot of pieces. What is the best way to introduce math to young children? What would you recommend at not necessarily at your kids' ages, but maybe a little older?
Sure. Yeah, I think. Sorry, are you getting a bit of echo from me, or is it okay? No, perfect. Yeah, I think it all depends as well, huh? We need to know our children. If they're some are more creative, some like the mathematics and science. So it's important to get to know our child a little bit, and we might not want to introduce it as math too early on because we don't want to throw them out if that's something. I always find kids are always intuitive and they love games. I even with my 3.5-year-old, we might get her or ask her to count the number of red cars. She doesn't like long trips, and we just had a bit of a weekend to the mountains. It's about an hour and a half from where we live. So to keep her occupied, we ask her to count the color cars. Now, in the moment, I'm not thinking that I'm getting her to do math. That's just my math mind.
Yeah.
Asking that sort of question. And then counting is important. So as soon as you can introduce counting, or as soon as they can start to recognize numbers, I think it's important to introduce that. That's not necessarily sit down, let's have a lesson on counting.
Yes.
But they might have some pasta on the plate, and you might get them to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on their age. You've got to be age appropriate. But I would introduce it from as early as possible in a very natural way.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I did it when the kids were little. We would get them to help around the house, say, set the table. And we'd say, okay, how many plates do you need? There's mommy and daddy. And, so then we introduced counting, and we didn't, because I wasn't going to homeschool, that's for sure. I thought homeschoolers were crazy. So that just kind of fell into it. So I never even thought of that as being a way to introduce math, but it worked really well because it's just part of life, right? So, all right, so I'm going to stick to the questions, I promise.
No,
And
that's a great question.
And if anyone has questions, just go ahead and leave them in the comments. I want to warn you, we are using a program called StreamYard. So in order for us to see your name, you have to follow the little instructions in the description, which should be somewhere on the video. Okay, otherwise you will be just Facebook user, which is just a weird name. So, all right. So the first question that we wanted to talk about are, what are some of the mistakes that parents use when teaching math with their kids?
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think it's important that we identify these and try to avoid them. They can be very difficult, but I'm going to give you 5 points. I'll talk a little bit about each one, but if you need more information, you can about anything that we talk about today. People can reach out. They can send us an email, info@ctcmath.com. Just attention it to Nadim, Nadim, and you can forward on any questions that you might have. But I think the first mistake that we sometimes that as teachers or parents teaching our children can make when teaching math is to have a long explanation. You know, we can get stuck into thinking more is better. We want to try to keep that explanation to 3 to 4 minutes. You want to focus on one concept at a time, and we try to explain that concept for younger children in 3 to 4 minutes, and possibly 4 to 6 minutes as they get older, college level a little bit longer. But keep those explanations short and concise. You're far better off if you're spending 40 minutes or 45 minutes on math during your homeschool day. You're better off with a 5-minute explanation and 40 minutes of practice problems. And of course, you can supplement or provide additional support after they've done a few questions. But you're far better off doing 5 minutes of explanations and 40 minutes of practice rather than a 25-minute explanation and only 20 minutes of practice problems.
Yeah. I would think that kids would get buried under all that information. If it's like 25 minutes, I would lose my attention. I wouldn't be able to focus that long.
Certainly. And that probably brings us to problem number 2, or common mistake number 2, and that's complicating it. Short by nature means simple, trying to keep it as simple as possible, but we can sometimes think that we have to come up with these elaborate, complicated explanations because math can be by nature a little bit technical, and that's fair enough to possibly fall into that trap. But we want to keep it simple. Try not to introduce too many diverse methods. I would stick to one method. Okay. Make sure that they understand that. Now, if they don't get that one method, you might rethink things and try another method. But just because a method is valid or works doesn't necessarily mean you should overload the children with it. I've seen some video tutorials and out there, and I'm confused. I understand the concept, and I'm after I watch the video tutorial, I'm left feeling confused, wondering, has this all been a lie?
Yeah, it's bad when.
Yeah. So, mistake number 3.
Okay.
Mistake number 3 is believing the hype in discovery learning. Now, don't get me wrong, discovery learning has its place and it is important. And many has its place and works for a percentage of students. But when it comes to math, and I'll give you a really practical example to think about here. When it comes to math, if I was to give a child a Rubik's Cube, they would play with that Rubik's Cube. I mean, I reckon 99% of kids would play with that Rubik's Cube and then be left frustrated after 15 minutes and put it down and never pick it up again. Yeah. I could show that child a few small algorithms to create some patterns and start solving that Rubik's Cube using some simple explanations, and you will find that child will spend more time because they start to get it, it starts to click, they start to understand, they're not feeling left frustrated, they will spend a longer time, and then the discovery learning will take place after. They might ask for a bigger Rubik's Cube, they might come up with a different algorithm or a different method, but they need their foundation. They need their foundation. So it's important to start with the foundations. It's important to start with clear, concise explanations. And I think there's a lot more in the area of studies to come out from this. And we're somewhat seeing a bit of a backflip happen now. But discovery learning has its place, but don't get caught up in the hype of it.
So I'm going to interrupt you just a little bit. Can you explain exactly what you mean by discovery learning?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Because I've heard that term, but I'm not sure if everyone has. So if we kind of have that same idea of what you're talking
about. No, for sure, for sure. Well, discovery learning is, I mean, there's different versions and different models of it, but looking at it from a holistic point of view in terms of all education is basically allowing the child to go on a learning path themselves. Yeah,
Okay.
to really go on a learning path themselves. So it originated from the theory of it encourages creativity, and that if you sort of sit and teach a child to a textbook, then you're squashing creativity. I'm speaking exclusively now with math.
Yeah.
When it comes to math, children need their explanation. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're not crushing any creativity.
Yeah.
You're in fact crushing creativity by throwing them in the deep end. Because math is difficult by nature, and it's either right or wrong. There's no in between. So there is set methodology. There is that set pathway with math. So the worst thing you want to do is tell a child inadvertently that make your own path. Make your own path, child. Which I can understand how that can relate to other areas and other educational fields, but I'm speaking exclusively about math now.
And I think sometimes, well, especially with math, knowing having a foundation and guidelines will really help support our children as they're trying to learn and figure things out. Like you mentioned the Rubik's Cube. If you handed me that, I used to play with it. I never figured it out. You said 15 minutes. I don't think I lasted that long. I was like, this is pretty. Makes a great paperweight, right? But if you can teach a child how to do that, the patterns and the algorithms, once they start clicking, then they can start building. And I think that was a really practical way so we can kind of picture what you were talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's the foundations. And this goes on to mistake number 4, and that's thinking that rote learning your times tables is bad. Rote learning your times tables is fantastic. It provides a foundation. It provides a basis. There's lots of studies out there that students who can instantly recall math facts are far more successful in higher grade levels of math. Now, that's just a sit down sort of laborious task that has to be done. And will they forget, or will some children get it quicker than others? Of course, it can be incredibly frustrating for some children and teachers. But I would persevere. I would try. I would not try to work out, and I'll get to this more in mistake number 5. But there might be you might need to just have a break from that and go on to something else. But it's important that children rote learn their times tables and are able to instantly recall math facts.
I started laughing because I had a memory of, I don't know what grade I was in, but I had to repeat 6 times 6 was 36 for my teacher in school, in public school. And I remember standing there saying this over and over again. I may have forgotten a lot of my times tables, but that one I have not forgotten. Because I had to say it so often. I think it's probably one of the first ones that I instantly recall. So you're right, learning them, and it's kind of boring. I remember being bored to death saying it over and over again, but it stuck. It worked. So
and it's probably, I mean, I've just had this thought as we're having this discussion. It's probably good for the children. I mean, as adults, we do things that we don't feel like doing. We don't feel like changing nappies at 3 a.m. But I guess we do it out of love, of course.
Yes.
and necessity. It's good for children to start to do things that they possibly don't feel like doing. If we were to completely do everything that we felt like doing, there might be a bit of chaos everywhere. But anyway, that's a different discussion. So mistake number 5.
Okay.
Mistake number 5 is now I am guilty of this. Okay, and I'm not even teaching my children math yet. So, are we going to make this mistake? I'll start by saying, am I going to continue to make this mistake? For sure. Is it difficult? For sure, but I think it's something that is important for all us parents and all us homeschoolers to be very aware of, that children should not sense any frustration coming from the parent.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Guilty.
I started by saying I'm guilty. I haven't even started teaching math.
Yeah.
How come? I think it puts up a roadblock for the students.
Yeah.
You lose your sense of focus when teaching. When I was younger, I used to do a lot of math tutoring, and I used to always get frustrated when teaching my sister. It got to the point where I said to my mum, it's best if I find another tutor to look after my sister, But why? You're tutoring all these other kids. Why won't you tutor your sister? Because it was easier for me to get frustrated.
Yeah, it is.
With family. Now, if we get frustrated, the barrier comes up, they zone out, it makes it more difficult to learn. And they get worried to come to you. They sense that, oh, I don't want, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, but then it makes it more difficult for them to come to you. And we certainly don't want our children feeling worried or concerned about coming to us, not just for simple math problems, but for future things, which are far more important and have far more gravity. But am I guilty of this? Yes. Will I do it again? Of course. But maybe some practical tips or advice is, once you sense it coming on, put the books away for the day. Go on to something else. I was speaking to a homeschool mum, and she told me that they were really starting to get frustrated, and this is the beauty of homeschooling. You have this freedom, you have this awesome flexibility. Now, maybe not so much. I understand that a lot of your followers are time poor, but I would suggest just putting that away for the moment and going on to something fun, like cooking, like baking some cookies or something, something fun that just removes the stress.
Yeah, I find that is what I have found, to the point where, because I have one who really struggled with math, which is how I found CTC Math, because what we were doing was not working, and she was crying and I was crying, and it was awful. So I purchased CTC Math myself. We did the free trial and then we purchased it, and it worked. But there's still some days where she gets frustrated and I get frustrated, and the only thing for us that works is to say, okay, we're done for today. Let's move on to something. And she likes art, and she likes to decorate cakes. So she'll do one of those things for the day. And I mean, it's still math. I just don't tell her. Just like, she doesn't need to know. So, but you're right. That is probably the best advice for when your kids are frustrated, because otherwise you just get more and more frustrated, and it makes math miserable.
For sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, those are really good points. So I'll go back in later and write those in the comments. For those of you that missed them, please, you might want to write them down yourself, and anything that you think will work. Okay. So question that I had was, as a working mom, one of the things that I find is extremely vital is to teach our kids to learn independently. So we're not sitting right beside them every day, especially for those of us that work at home, because, we have to be talking with clients, we have to talk with our boss, we have to talk with customers. So we can't always be side by side.
Yep.
How do you feel is the best way for us to encourage our children to learn math, which is considered a hard subject, independently?
Yeah, great question. So by the nature of the question, we really want the children driving this. Yeah. I think for the children to really drive it, they've got to really like the curriculum. You've got to find a curriculum that invokes independent learning, that's all about independent learning, that the children really enjoy. I think number one, ask your child, or if you're finding, I mean, maybe you don't need to ask them unnecessarily, but if you're finding they're really struggling to learn on their own, ask them, do you like this curriculum? Now, they might say no just to get out of it.
Yes.
I would have a deep conversation about that. Well, okay, you don't like this curriculum. We're not getting out of math. Okay, math. We're still going to do, you still need to learn your math. What is it specifically about this curriculum that you don't like or that you are struggling with? And I would workshop that. I would really sit down, have conversations about that, and see what it is that drives your child to independent learning, drives your child to want to sit down on their own and want to learn. Now, they might say, I just want games. I just want the math games. That's where I get most of my learning done. And you might then turn around and say, well, okay, all right, they're fun, sure, but how much learning is actually going on when you're playing those games? And it might be a realigning of the thinking of the child. It might be not necessarily the curriculum you might discover, but no matter what curriculum you put in front of them, that it's actually the child's thinking. So it's important to really talk to them. We're humans. We work on incentives. The whole world's built incentive based. So what sort of incentives can you introduce without spoiling the children? What sort of incentives? I think it's important for them to know that growing in education and growing in learning, it has a positive spin-off, which you might not see, and that's the incentive. That should be the main incentive.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't see that, and they really need that picture painted, or they need a few other extra incentives which are a little bit more visible to them. Again, it's about seeing your own child, seeing what makes them tick. I give general statements. They don't necessarily apply to everyone, but this is what we have found works best for the majority of kids.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I have found is that every program won't work for every child.
For sure.
So CTC Math works amazing for my daughter, but my son, he uses something else. He uses a mix of an online curriculum, plus he likes book work, plus he tends to teach himself, but he goes hunting for different pieces to fill it in till he understands it. So he'll pick it, which is great, right? Because I don't understand it. But he'll sit and he'll tell me, because I always feel like if they can teach someone else what they're doing, then they understand it enough. So he'll sit down, he'll say, okay, I'm going to show you what I did in math today. I'm like, great, because it's like teaching someone that has no idea, because I have no idea. So it's a really great process for him. And he's very driven by, wanting to complete things. Now, other children need a reward system. So what we used to do when they were younger is we would say, okay, we're going to learn this concept, and then we would find a game to reinforce what they learned. And then they had to do some more paperwork. So we tried to balance back and forth between, the foundation and teaching and making it fun, and then so that they could see how it was applied in life as well.
Yep.
So I think that's why it's kind of hard to answer some questions, because you don't know the child, you don't know how they learn, and you don't know all the pieces. So I always have a hard time that's why I love that CTC Math and other companies offer a free trial period, because I always suggest to people, go try it and then you'll know, because the kids are so different, right?
For sure. And I'm not here to, I'm here to answer. I don't want to plug CTC Math too much, but But we offer a 12-month money-back guarantee for that very reason. We don't want anyone feeling like they've wasted money on their math curriculum. We appreciate that. Firstly, we back our program 100%, our curriculum, but we also appreciate that it might not be for everyone, and that's why we offer that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, there you go.
It's on our registration page on the right-hand side, and it's in some of our marketing material. Yeah.
Okay, I should learn to read.
No.
All right. Well, when I knew that you were coming, and so I went into the group and I asked for specific questions. So some are about your program,
Okay.
and some are not. So we have a question from Abigail, and I think Abigail is working tonight, so hopefully she'll get this later. I'll send her the link so she can watch the video. She says, I would love to hear about ADHD, working memory, executive function, and how your math program can help or handle a great kid who struggles in these areas.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll speak specifically about CTC Math, and it's a great question. What we find is students, particularly with ADHD, really need to learn at their own pace. Really need to go at their own pace. Go at their own pace. So with CTC Math, you have access to all lessons from all grades.
Yes.
You also have the video tutorials to stop and rewind. It really is self-paced. There's no restrictions in what you can and can't do. We give practice problems, 10 problems at a time, but you can always reload more if more are required. There's diagnostic tests or revision tests that you can use as a pre-test or approach test, and you can also create custom worksheets. So all these aid and facilitate learning at your own pace. But I think what's really important is what's going to get the child engaged. You're not going to know until you play that video tutorial and watch their reaction and see how they react to that. So it's very important to have the children watch the video tutorials of any curriculum that you're considering. And if it doesn't have a video tutorial, then I would suggest looking for an alternate curriculum, because they really do need something that's going to have them engaged listening. If it's just reading text off a book, you'll find that their attention span is quickly lost. So watch them, see if that aha moment occurs on their face when they're watching. Maybe for ease of simplicity when comparing, try to show them a video tutorial on the same concept across all the curriculums. It might be fractions, because sometimes we can show them a super easy video tutorial in one curriculum and a much more difficult one in another one, where they're not ready for that. Yep. And that's not the right comparison to make. Yep. But I hope that's answered the question. It was Abigail, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
To go into that a little bit further, I would need to know a little bit more about her son. So Abigail, please, if you'd like more, send me an email, info@ctcmath.com. I'm also happy to jump on a call. So you can call our CTC Math number, leave a message, and I'll call you back, or send me an email with your best contact number and best time to call.
Okay, and I'll let her know that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have Erica, and she asks, what makes CTC Math different from any other online curriculums?
The video tutorials. They're short, simple, to the point. Lots of aha moments. It was interesting when we first, because Pat is Aussie, like me, Aussie accent. We were concerned about the Aussie accent with the video tutorial, and we thought we'd just try and see what the reaction is. And everyone absolutely loves the Aussie accent. It's actually become what I thought would possibly be a roadblock has actually become an asset for us. It would have been crazy to have our video tutorials re-recorded because the children find it really engaging. They listen to it. Pat has a very calm, soothing voice. He's He's incredible at what he does. He's very gifted at. Look, I've seen other teachers explain the same concept 15, 20, 25 minutes. Pat does it in 3 minutes.
Mhm.
It's amazing. So the video tutorials, the multi-sensory approach with the video tutorials is what really makes us stand out. I think also now the question bank wizard, which we've just recently introduced, this ability to create custom worksheets across all grade levels. You can go in and create a custom worksheet, and it can apply to one lesson or multiple lessons. So you can create a custom test, a custom worksheet, however you want to use it. You can adjust the time, so you can create it based on time. If you want the children to do 25 minutes or 30 minutes or 10 minutes, or you can adjust it based on number of questions and you see the time adjust, difficulty levels. You can even go in and go, oh, I like that question. I want more of similar types of questions. And you click a plus button. Or I don't like that question and I can delete it.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And you don't have to do all these things.
No.
A lot of it's preset. How much you want to customize is completely up to you.
So I'm just going to offer my personal opinion, Erica, about why I chose this program, because I hunted. Oh, I think I asked every homeschool mom I knew out there. We came from Singapore Math, which we loved when I was a stay-at-home mom. It worked great. But as soon as I went to work, I wasn't there side by side to work with her through the problems. And as it got harder math, I didn't understand it myself. So I found like I was doing all this extra research. So when I started looking, I wanted something. And this is what I loved about CTC Math. The first thing that I loved about it is I had access to every grade. Everything else I looked at, I had to buy a grade. Like I had to pay this for 6th grade or this for 7th grade. And I didn't know exactly where she was. Like in some things she was ahead, some things she was behind. So I love that. I don't customize it hardly at all. So
Yeah, you don't
I
have
really
to.
don't use the program to the full, capabilities. I say, okay, you're going to do one section of math, and we do it by time. So she's not allowed to do it unless she's really enjoying it longer than an hour. If she gets stuck and she gets frustrated, we stop and we come back to the next day. So I don't have her complete like so many per school year. I just have however far she gets, then that's where we stop and then we pick it up. And I love that she can go offline or online, because parents today are so concerned about screen time, how much screen time their kids are using. If we have to go do school in a dentist office, she can take it, do it on her tablet if she wants to, or we can print it off and she can do the sheets. And it was great when we had some family tragedy. Last year, we had a family member in one hospital, another family member in another hospital. We had 3 in hospital, and my daughter was in the hospital. So it was a little chaotic, but we were able to keep up with our math because it was so easy to use for the parent. It was all done. I didn't have to do anything, and she could take it as she went. So those are just some of the things that I personally love as a working mom. It's, works so good for her. Those are just some of the things I like. I mean, I could go on and on, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, and sorry, I should have mentioned that custom worksheets are completely optional. They're not something that have to be taken or have to be created.
No.
We've got a whole bunch of worksheets already created for you. So yeah.
And she loves the certificates. Those are
Yeah.
super cool. I don't know why, but we print every single one of them off. She puts them on her
Right.
wall, and they're a great reward for their hard work. It's fun.
It's important for them to see a sense of accomplishment.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so we have Nicole, and she wanted to know she said, can the diagnostic tests be used as a review? That was the first question. She had 2 parts. And the second was, how do we keep up with the skills they've learned?
Okay. Yes, it can be used as a review. It can be used as a pre-test or a post-test. So I would only use them as a pre-test when you're trying to figure out when switching from curriculum to curriculum. It'll get to a stage where you're comfortable within CTC Math and you're just working through the lesson order. That's when I would definitely start using them as a review. Now, the only difference, there's 3 types: short, standard, and comprehensive. And you see them listed at the top. You just click on short or standard or comprehensive. The only difference is the number of questions. They all draw from the same bank of questions. and they will all assess the lessons within that topic. So they're a fantastic review. They're great. I would definitely use them to review concepts. Now, you can go, because you have access to all lessons from all grades, you might decide to say, okay, we're in 6th grade, but let's complete the 5th grade diagnostic tests, and we can possibly might do one every 2 weeks. And so you can go back and work through the order of them. Mm-hmm. And that could be one lesson for every 2 weeks. And what's also fantastic about them is that the report will identify which lessons need to be covered. So they might score really well in a certain part of the test, but in another part, they need to focus on possibly the addition of fractions or multiplication of 4 times tables. So you can then go to that specific lesson on that specific concept, and that will help you. Sorry, you're going to have to remind me about part B of Nicole's question.
It's okay. She said, how do we keep up with the skills that they have learned?
Yeah, well, certainly by doing these diagnostic tests, by incorporating revision. We also have the weekly revision task. Again, completely optional, available, 1 per week from grades 1 to 6. They are fantastic. They split in 2 semesters, and they're designed to be completed 1 per week. Now, Semester 1 covers the previous year's work. Semester 2 covers previous year work plus work that would have been done during semester 1 within the curriculum. That's another option, and they are worksheet, or you can do them online. So you can print them, or you can do them online. Also, there's the custom bank wizard, which will take 2 minutes to create, because all you will do is you will go in and you will select, 5 lessons that you might want them to review that they've done maybe 3-4 months ago that you just want to make sure that they understand. So you can pick 4 or 5 lessons, and then you're done. You're done. You can create it based on that, or you can click 5 lessons and then go, I want this to go for 35-40 minutes. It will adjust the number of questions, and I either want it. By default, it's set to medium difficulty, but you can switch it to easy or hard.
And that's found in the parental dashboard, right?
Correct. Yes, you log in as a parent and you create that for them, and then you can either assign it as a task or print it.
Yes. Okay. Nice.
But it will take 2 minutes, because you don't have to fiddle around with it too much. You just have to select the lessons that you want to cover.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, last one. Well, she has I'll just read it.
Sure.
This is from Lenita, and she says, what does CTC Math offer for writing math options when a student needs more practice? Mm-hmm. Some kids need to practice writing out the problem and working through the steps of solving it, while others do well with quick recall.
Sure. And I guess it depends on the concept as well. So we have a whole section on problem solving in each grade level. So problem solving is really important, and they're written questions. So we always encourage pen and paper. So whether they're doing the questions online or not, we encourage pen and paper to assist in their working out. And in fact, in high school, a lot of the questions are worksheet based. Mm-hmm. Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and so forth. So they either print out the worksheet and complete it, or they view the worksheet online and write out their solutions. And we have full work solutions for those worksheets. Now, we also have the weekly revision tasks, which are worksheet based. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking for worksheet questions for the lessons, because in primary, I'm assuming the leader's children are in primary, because she would have seen a lot of the worksheets if they were in high school. But if they are in primary, the interactive questions appear by default. Logging into your parental area and going to the question bank wizard and just selecting that lesson and going generate worksheet, it will create a worksheet for them. So there's worksheets for every single lesson, but it's optional. You can either do it online or worksheet. Choice is yours.
Yeah. And I found for my daughter, she's in high school, so she always has like her computer set. Well, she's usually working here actually. And so we have the desk. It's a desktop, so she has lots of room. She has her math notebook and she writes it all out as she's going. And so she checks each step and she always, so there's a lot of writing. Like she has a thick math scribbler that she uses. Yeah.
For sure, math, especially in the older grades, the working out becomes more detailed. When you create the worksheet, you click it, you check a box, and it says provide working out space.
Yes.
And we leave the necessary working out space for each problem.
Yeah. All right. So that was all the questions we had from everybody.
How good.
I don't see any new questions popping up. I'm just going to check the other tab and see, just in case they're not showing up. But if you guys do have any questions, I encourage you to come back, leave them in the comments of this video. I can easily send them off to Nadeem, and I will also get his email address where I know he repeated it twice, but I can't remember what I had breakfast, so I'm definitely not going to remember that. So I'll get you to repeat how people can contact you if they have any questions. And in the description of this video, I will come back and share where you can try CTC Math for free and see if it fits for your family. And they have a 12-month money-back guarantee, which I totally didn't know about. So it's really awesome. So if it doesn't work, if you invest in the money and you're finding that you're having problems, and I will point out from personal experience, if you get stuck trying to figure out how to use their program anywhere, their help desk is amazing. They will walk you through every single step from I've never turned on a computer before kind of process if you need that, and you will be unstuck really fast. So it's great because and you can do it through email because I absolutely hate making phone calls. So I got to send an email.
We also, how long ago did you start using CTC Math?
Oh, it must be 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, we introduced a user guide, and yeah, so when you log into the parent dashboard, you'll see the user guide in the top right-hand corner, and it's highlighted as new for new customers as well.
Okay, well, there you go.
Existing customers, we know that they've been using it for a couple of years, and we didn't want to bug them. So, but it's really helpful, and but email as well, please. Kirsty, Matthew, they're always there, ready to help.
Right. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. By the way, in case you haven't figured out, Nadeem is in Australia, so it is like supper time for me, and he is morning time for him. My son was very disappointed. I'm going to share with you guys because you guys have heard me talk about my 18-year-old and how he has an aversion to waking up early. And he thought I was absolutely the worst person ever for dragging poor Nadeem out of bed to talk to us on video before, 10 o'clock. So I appreciate your sacrifice.
Normal morning for me, so thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.